The stars looked different from here. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UCS Discovery, watching the main screen show their approach to the Kepler 442 system. 3 years they had been traveling through space, searching for new worlds and new life. This system looked promising with 4 planets and signs of water on at least 2 of them. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the communications array," said Lieutenant Amy Chun from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with quick fingers that danced across her control panel. "It's not natural signals, sir. Someone is trying to talk to us." Jake walked over to her station. In his 15 years of space exploration, he had hoped for this moment but never really expected it. First contact with alien life. "Can you clean up the signal?" "Working on it now, sir." Amy's brow wrinkled as she focused on the incoming transmission. Static filled the bridge speakers, then slowly cleared into something that sounded almost like voices. Strange voices speaking in no language any human had ever heard. Dr. Lisa Hayes looked up from her science station. She was the ship's xenobiologist, a woman in her 30s who had spent most of her adult life studying the possibility of alien life. "Captain, if this is what I think it is, we need to be very careful. First contact protocols exist for good reasons." "I know, Doctor. Shun, can you get a visual?" The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that definitely was not human. The creature on the screen appeared to be made of living crystal, with a body that seemed to shift between solid and translucent. Behind it, Jake could see other figures that looked completely different. One seemed to be covered in what looked like metal scales. Another appeared to be some kind of plant creature with moving vines for arms. "This is incredible," whispered Dr. Hayes. "Multiple species working together." The crystal being began to speak, and somehow the ship's computer was starting to translate the words. The translation was rough, but they could understand the basic meaning. human ship, you must stop. You must not come here. Great danger waits in this system. Turn back now, or you will all die." Commander Tony Rodriguez, the ship's security chief, stepped forward. He was a big man with careful eyes who had served in 3 different conflicts before joining the exploration service. "Captain, this could be a trap. Maybe they want us to leave so they can have this system for themselves." Jake held up his hand for silence. "Let me talk to them." He moved to the center of the bridge where the communication pickup would show him clearly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Discovery. We come in peace. We are explorers looking for new worlds and new friends. What is this danger you speak of?" The crystal being's image flickered as the translation system worked. When it spoke again, its voice carried what sounded like real fear. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian people. We represent the Galactic Preservation Alliance. Human Captain, you do not understand. In this system lives a creature that has destroyed many worlds and killed billions of our people. We call them Void Stalkers. They are death itself." Dr. Hayes moved closer to Jake. "Captain, may I speak with them? As a scientist?" Jake nodded. "Ambassador Veltar, this is Dr. Lisa Hayes, our expert on life forms. Can you tell us more about these creatures?" The alien council seemed to discuss something among themselves before Veltar answered. "Dr. Hayes, these creatures are not like anything in your understanding. They are larger than your ship. They can become invisible. They can drain the power from your machines. They have hunted and eaten entire civilizations. For 3,000 years, we have tried to fight them. We always lose. How many of these creatures are there?" Asked Dr. Hayes. "In this system, our sensors detect at least 1, maybe 2. That is enough to destroy everything. Doctor, you must understand. These are not animals. They are nightmares made real. They are the reason we created the Preservation Alliance. When Void Stalkers appear, worlds die. Lieutenant Ben Parker, the ship's scout, spoke up from his position near the back of the bridge. "Captain, with respect, shouldn't we at least take a look? We've come a long way to just turn around, because some aliens are scared." Commander Rodriguez shook his head. "Parker, if these creatures are as dangerous as they say, we could be risking the entire crew." Ambassador Veltar's image became clearer as the translation system improved. "Human Rodriguez, you speak of risk, but you do not understand the certainty of death that waits here. Let me share with you our data on these creatures." The main screen split to show biological readings and images that made the bridge crew fall silent. The creatures in the images were massive, easily the size of a small building. They had 6 limbs that ended in claws longer than a human body. Their skin seemed to shift and change, sometimes looking like rock, sometimes like metal, sometimes like empty space itself. "These images are from our last encounter with a void stalker," Veltar continued. "This was the Corellian colony world of Mendra Prime. 40 million people lived there. The creature arrived alone. In 6 days, the planet was empty. We found no survivors. The creature had consumed everything." Dr. Hayes studied the data streaming across her station. "The biological readings are incredible. This creature shows adaptation abilities beyond anything we've ever seen. It can apparently change its molecular structure at will." "Dr. Hayes," said Veltar, "your people are new to the galaxy. You have not seen what we have seen. Please, for the sake of your species, turn back. Do not make us watch another civilization die." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was a mix of excitement and concern. They had trained for dangerous situations, but this was beyond anything they had prepared for. Still, something about the whole situation bothered him. If these creatures were so unstoppable, how did the aliens know so much about them? How had any of them survived to tell the story? "Ambassador Veltar, how long have your people been aware of these creatures?" 3,000 of your years, Captain. Morrison, they appeared first in the outer systems and have been moving inward ever since. We estimate they have consumed the populations of over 200 worlds. And in all that time, no one has ever successfully fought one? There was a pause before Veltar answered. "Some have tried. The Corellians built massive defense platforms. The creatures destroyed them in minutes. The Zelani created weapons that could destroy small moons. The creatures were not even slowed down. Captain, these are not merely predators. They are forces of nature, like your storms or earthquakes, but with intelligence and hunger." Jake made his decision. "Ambassador, we appreciate your warning, and we understand the danger. But humans have faced dangerous predators before. We would like to study this creature, learn about it. Perhaps we can find something your people missed." The aliens on the screen seemed to have a heated discussion among themselves. Finally, Veltar turned back to the humans. "Captain Morrison, we cannot stop you, but we will not help you. We will monitor from a safe distance. When your ship is destroyed, we will remember your people and honor your sacrifice." "That's all we ask," Jake replied. Discovery out. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge crew in silence. Finally, Commander Rodriguez spoke. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Jake looked out at the stars ahead of them. Somewhere in this system was a creature that had terrorized an entire galaxy for thousands of years. But Jake Morrison was human, and humans had been hunting dangerous creatures since they lived in caves and carried pointed sticks. "Tony, we didn't come all this way to run from our first real challenge. Besides, I'm curious. If these things are so unstoppable, why are the aliens still alive to warn us about them?" Dr. Hayes looked up from her data analysis. "Captain, the biological data they shared is fascinating. This creature is definitely formidable, but it's still a biological entity. It follows the laws of physics and biology. That means it can be Studied, understood, and potentially defeated. That's what I'm counting on, Doctor. Chun, set course for the fourth planet. Parker, prep the landing team. Rodriguez, break out the heavy weapons. Let's go meet the galaxy's worst nightmare. As the Discovery moved deeper into the system, none of the crew realized they were about to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. They were just humans, doing what humans do best, looking at something that scared everyone else and deciding to take a closer look. The fourth planet looked dead from orbit. Captain Jake Morrison studied the surface through the Discovery sensors while his crew prepared for landing. What should have been a green world covered in forests showed only brown dirt and scattered rocks. Deep scratches ran across the landscape like scars, some of them hundreds of miles long. "Those marks are recent," said Dr. Lisa Hayes, pointing at her readings. "Something big made them, and it happened within the last few months." Lieutenant Ben Parker checked his equipment one more time. As the ship's scout, he would be the first one on the ground. "Captain, the atmosphere is breathable, but there's something strange about the electromagnetic readings. It's like there's interference coming from somewhere on the surface." "Could it be the creature?" asked Commander Tony Rodriguez. "Maybe," Dr. Hayes replied. "The biological data the aliens shared mentioned that void stalkers can affect electronic equipment. We should be prepared for our gear to act up." Jake made his decision. "Parker, take the first shuttle down. Do a quick survey of the landing area. Rodriguez, you and your security team follow in the second shuttle. Hayes, you're with me in the third. I want to see this planet for myself." An hour later, Ben Parker stood alone on the surface of a world that felt wrong. The air was thin but breathable, and the gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal. That should have made walking easier, but every step felt like he was being watched. The silence was complete. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just the sound of his own breathing inside his helmet. "Discovery, this is Parker. The landing zone is clear, but something is very wrong here. This planet feels dead. I'm not picking up any life signs at all." Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the radio. "Copy that, Parker. We're coming down now. Stay alert." Parker walked toward what looked like the remains of a forest. The trees were all broken off at about the same height, as if something massive had walked through them. As he got closer, he could see that the breaks were clean, not torn or burned. Whatever had done this was incredibly strong, but also precise. "Captain, you need to see this. The damage here isn't random. Something was hunting, and it knew exactly what it was doing." The second shuttle landed nearby, and Commander Rodriguez led his team toward Parker's position. Rodriguez was carrying a heavy plasma rifle, and his 3 team members were armed with military-grade weapons that could stop almost anything. Almost anything they knew about, anyway. "Parker, what's your assessment?" Rodriguez asked through the radio. "This wasn't a feeding frenzy, Commander. Look at the pattern. The creature moved through this area systematically, like it was clearing everything out for a reason." Dr. Hayes arrived with the captain in the third shuttle. She immediately began taking readings with her portable scanners. "The soil composition is normal, but there are traces of an unknown protein in the ground. It's like something bled here, but the blood isn't from any species we know." Jake looked around at the devastation. In his years of exploration, he had seen planets hit by asteroids, worlds burned by solar flares, and systems destroyed by war. This was different. This destruction had intelligence behind it. Double quotes Hayes. "Can you track where the creature went?" "I'm getting traces leading toward that canyon system about 2 miles east. The electromagnetic interference is stronger in that direction, too." "All right, people. Parker, you take point. Rodriguez, keep your team spread out. Hayes, stay in the middle and keep scanning. If this thing is still alive, I want to know about it before it knows about us. The team moved across the barren landscape toward the canyon. The interference got worse as they walked, making their radios crackle and their scanners give false readings. After an hour of walking, Parker held up his hand for the team to stop. "Something's wrong," he whispered into his radio. "The ground here is warm, and I'm getting movement readings from my scanner, but I can't see anything." Dr. Hayes checked her instruments. "Parker's right. There's definitely something large nearby, but it's not showing up on visual. The creature might be camouflaged." Commander Rodriguez signaled his team to spread out and prepare for contact. "Everyone stay calm. We knew this thing could become invisible. Use your thermal scanners and watch for movement." Parker took another step forward, and the ground beneath his feet shifted slightly. He looked down and realized he wasn't standing on rock at all. The surface under his boots was moving, breathing. He was standing on the creature itself. "Contact!" Parker yelled, jumping backward as the ground erupted around him. The Void Stalker rose from what had appeared to be solid rock, its skin shifting from brown stone to mottled gray. It was even larger than the alien data had suggested, standing 30 feet tall with a body that seemed to flow like liquid metal. 6 limbs unfolded from its torso, each ending in claws that gleamed like polished steel. Its head had no visible eyes, but it turned toward Parker with obvious awareness. "Open fire." Rodriguez shouted. The security team's weapons lit up the canyon with energy beams and explosive rounds. The creature moved faster than anything that size should have been able to move, flowing to one side like water, while its claws scraped gouges in the solid rock. Parker rolled behind a boulder as one of the creature's limbs smashed into the ground where he had been standing. The impact sent shockwaves through the canyon floor. "This thing is fast, really fast." Dr. Hayes watched from behind cover as the creature dodged most of the weapon's fire. The few shots that connected seemed to cause some damage, leaving dark marks on its skin, but it didn't slow down. "Captain, it's learning our firing patterns. Look how it moves now compared to 30 seconds ago." Jake drew his sidearm, knowing it wouldn't do much against something this size, but feeling better with a weapon in his hand. "Rodriguez, concentrate fire on one area. Don't let it adapt to scattered shots." "Copy that." "Team, focus on the center." "Mass, pour it on." The concentrated fire started to have an effect. The creature's skin began to smoke where the energy beams hit, and its movements became less fluid. But instead of retreating, it attacked harder, rushing toward Rodriguez's position with terrifying speed. "Look out!" Parker yelled, firing his rifle at the creature's head to distract it. The Void Stalker spun toward Parker, one massive claw sweeping through the air where his head had been a second before. Parker dove and rolled, coming up behind another rock. Formation. The creature's claw shattered the boulder he had been hiding behind, sending stone fragments flying everywhere. "It's toying with us," Dr. Hayes realized. "Look at its movements." It could have killed Parker twice already, but it's not going for finishing blows. It's testing us. Commander Rodriguez didn't like the sound of that. Testing us for what? To see how we fight. To see if we're worth hunting. The creature suddenly went completely still, its skin shifting until it matched the canyon walls perfectly. Within seconds, it had vanished from sight again. Where did it go? Parker whispered. "It's still here," Dr. Hayes said, watching our scanners. "The readings are all around us. I think it's moving through the rock somehow." Jake made a decision that would have seemed insane to any alien in the galaxy. Instead of retreating, he started walking toward where the creature had been. "If it wants to study us, let's give it something to think about. Rodriguez, have your team set up a crossfire pattern. Parker, can you get to higher ground?" "Captain, what are you doing?" Dr. Hayes asked. "I'm going hunting," Jake replied. This thing might be tough, but it's still just an animal. And humans have been hunting animals a lot bigger and meaner than themselves for thousands of years. The Void Stalker emerged from the canyon wall directly behind Captain Morrison, its claws reaching for him. But Jake had been listening to the small sounds it made when it moved, and he dove forward just as Rodriguez and his team opened fire from 3 different directions. This time, the creature couldn't dodge all the shots. Energy beams hit it from multiple angles, and it let out a sound that was part roar, part electronic screech. Dark fluid that might have been blood began to drip from several wounds. "It can be hurt," Parker yelled from his position on a ledge. Above the creature, "Captain, it's bleeding." The Void Stalker looked around at the humans who had just proven they could wound it. For the first time in thousands of years, a creature that had destroyed entire civilizations was facing prey that fought back effectively. With a final screech that made their radios squeal with feedback, the creature turned and flowed back into the canyon walls, disappearing from sight. The humans stood in the sudden silence, breathing hard and checking their equipment. They had just survived their first encounter with the galaxy's most feared predator, and more importantly, they had heard it. "Did we just make that thing retreat?" Parker asked. Dr. Hayes was already taking readings from the dark blood on the rocks. "Yes, we did. And now we know it can bleed. Captain, I need to analyze this blood. If we can understand its biology, we might be able to figure out how to kill it." Jake Morrison looked around at his team. They were all alive. They had all performed well under pressure, and they had just proven that the galaxy's ultimate predator wasn't quite as unstoppable as everyone believed. "Good work, everyone. Let's head back to the ship. We've got a lot of planning to do." As they walked back toward their shuttles, none of them noticed the small sensors that the creature had left behind. 3 days had passed since the first encounter with the Void Stalker. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Discovery's main laboratory, watching Dr. Lisa Hayes work with the creature's blood samples. The ship's crew had spent those 3 days learning everything they could about their target. "The blood analysis is complete," Dr. Hayes announced to the assembled team. "This creature is definitely biological, not some kind of energy being like we first thought. It has a circulatory system, nervous system, and what appears to be a digestive system. Most importantly, it has weaknesses." Commander Tony Rodriguez leaned forward. "What kind of weaknesses?" "Its skin can adapt to almost anything, but the adaptation takes time. About 15 seconds for minor changes, up to 3 minutes for major ones. During that time, it's vulnerable. Also, the electromagnetic interference it generates comes from organs in its chest area. If we can damage those organs, we can disrupt its camouflage abilities." Lieutenant Ben Parker had been studying the tracking data from their encounter. "I've been watching its movement patterns. This thing is smart, but it follows predictable hunting behaviors. It likes to attack from behind and above. It tests its prey before going for the kill, and it always tries to separate groups into individuals." Jake nodded. "So we use its own instincts against it." "What about weapons effectiveness?" "The concentrated plasma fire worked best," Rodriguez reported. "Individual shots don't do much damage, but sustained fire from multiple directions can penetrate its defenses. I've modified our weapons to fire in coordinated bursts." Sergeant Danny Walsh, the ship's cook, had been listening quietly from the back of the room. He was a former soldier who had joined the crew because he enjoyed cooking for explorers, but he still remembered his military training. "Captain, has anyone considered what we do with this thing after we kill it?" "What do you mean, Walsh?" "Well, sir, it's a big creature. Lots of meat. Seems wasteful to just leave it lying around after we go through all the trouble of hunting it." Dr. Hayes looked up from her samples with interest. "Actually, that's not a bad question. The blood analysis shows high protein content and several amino acids that could be beneficial to humans. Theoretically, the meat might be edible. Rodriguez stared at them both. You're talking about eating the thing that's terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years? Why not? Walsh replied. Back on Earth, humans eat sharks, bears, and all kinds of dangerous predators. Just because something can kill you doesn't mean it can't also taste good. Jake considered this. In his experience, the best way to overcome fear was to make the feared thing into something ordinary. Hayes, run a full analysis on edibility. Joelsh, start thinking about cooking methods. Everyone else, let's focus on the hunt itself. The next morning, the hunting party returned to the planet's surface. This time, they were prepared. Parker had identified the creature's territory based on the electromagnetic readings. Rodriguez had positioned his team to create overlapping fields of fire with no escape routes. Dr. Hayes carried sensors that could track the creature's adaptive camouflage. They found the Void Stalker in the deepest part of the canyon system, resting in what appeared to be a nest made from the metal remains of ancient starships. The creature had been feeding on something, and dark stains covered the rocks around its resting place. It's not sleeping, Dr. Hayes whispered into her radio. The readings show it's aware of us. It's waiting to see what we do. Then let's not disappoint it, Jake replied. Execute the plan. The humans spread out into predetermined positions, moving with the quiet efficiency of experienced hunters. The Void Stalker watched them through senses they didn't fully understand, but it remained still. In its thousands of years of hunting, prey had never approached it deliberately. This was a new experience. Parker reached his position on the high ledge and activated a signal beacon. Rodriguez and his team confirmed they were in position at the canyon mouth. Dr. Hayes set up her sensor array in the center of the area, directly in the creature's line of sight. Remember, Jake said over the radio, they want it angry and focused on us, not thinking tactically. Hayes, start your scans. Make some noise. Dr. Hayes activated every scanner she had at maximum power. The electronic noise filled the canyon with buzzing and beeping sounds. The Void Stalker's skin rippled with annoyance, and it began to move toward her position. It's coming, she reported, backing toward the canyon wall as planned. Electromagnetic signature is spiking. It's preparing to charge. The creature rose to its full height and let out the electronic screech they had heard before. Its skin began shifting to match the canyon walls, but Dr. Hayes was tracking it with sensors that could see through its camouflage. Target acquired. Rodriguez announced, firing in 3, 2, 1. 6 plasma rifles opened fire simultaneously from different positions. The coordinated beams hit the creature before it could fully adapt, burning through its skin and revealing the darker tissue. Underneath, the Void Stalker spun toward the weapon fire, but more beams hit it from Parker's position above. This time, the creature didn't try to test them or play with them. It went straight for the kill, rushing toward Rodriguez's position with all 6 limbs extended. But the humans had planned for this. Rodriguez and his team scattered in different directions, forcing the creature to choose a single target while leaving it exposed to fire from the other positions. Keep moving, Jake shouted, adding his own weapon fire to the coordinated attack. Don't let it focus on anyone for more than a few seconds. The battle lasted 20 minutes. The Void Stalker was fast, strong, and intelligent, but the humans fought as a coordinated pack. Every time it charged one position, fire came from 2 others. Every time it tried to camouflage, Dr. Hayes tracked it with her sensors and called out its location. Every time it adapted to one type of attack, they switched to another. Finally, a concentrated burst from all 6 weapons penetrated the creature's chest, hitting the electromagnetic organs Dr. Hayes had identified. The Void Stalker's camouflage failed completely, and it collapsed to the canyon floor with a final, fading screech. The humans approached carefully, weapons ready, but the creature was clearly dead. Up close, it was even more impressive than they had expected. The skin that had seemed so adaptable was actually composed of millions of tiny scales that could change color and texture individually. The claws were made of a material harder than diamond, but lighter than aluminum. Incredible, Dr. Hayes said, taking readings from the dead creature. The biological complexity is beyond anything we've ever seen. This creature represents millions of years of evolution. And now it represents dinner, Walsh added, examining the creature's body with a professional eye. Captain, this thing is mostly muscle tissue. Good, clean protein. The internal organs look healthy, and Dr. Hayes said the blood was safe. I can work with this. Rodriguez shook his head in amazement. I still can't believe we're talking about eating it. Why not? Parker said, climbing down from his ledge position. My grandfather used to hunt grizzly bears back on Earth. He always said the best way to respect a dangerous animal was to use every part of it. 2 hours later, they had transported sections of the creature back to the Discovery. Walsh worked in the ship's kitchen, preparing the galaxy's most feared predator, using techniques he had learned cooking for exploration crews. The meat was dense and required slow cooking, but it had a rich, complex flavor that reminded him of the best beef he had ever tasted. The texture is amazing, Walsh reported to the crew gathered in the mess hall. It's like a cross between steak and lobster. High protein, low fat, and these amino acids Dr. Hayes found make it really nutritious. Dr. Hayes took the first bite, analyzing it scientifically. The protein chains are completely digestible by human systems. Actually, this might be one of the most nutritious things we could eat. Jake tried a piece next. The flavor was rich and complex, with a slight sweetness that made it incredibly appealing. This is actually delicious. One by one, the crew tried the Void Stalker meat. The reaction was universal amazement. Not only had they killed the galaxy's ultimate predator, but it tasted better than anything they had eaten in months of space. Travel. You know, Rodriguez said between bites, if word of this gets out, every human in the galaxy is going to want to try Void Stalker. Let them, Jake replied. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned that humans don't run from predators. We turn them into dinner. Unknown to the celebrating crew, their entire encounter had been monitored by the Galactic Preservation Alliance from their safe distance. Ambassador Veltar and the other alien representatives had watched in growing horror as the humans not only killed their greatest fear, but began consuming it with obvious enjoyment. They're eating it, whispered the Corellian delegate, his voice shaking. The humans are actually eating the Void Stalker. How is this possible? Asked the Zelani representative. No species in the galaxy would even consider such a thing. Veltar stared at the images being transmitted from the human ship. The creatures that his people had feared for thousands of years, that had driven entire civilizations to abandon star systems, were being served as the main course in a human dining room. We need to call an emergency session of the Alliance, Veltar said finally. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Preservation Alliance had never seen anything like this. Representatives from over 300 species filled the massive chamber, all of them talking at once in dozens of different languages. The translation systems worked overtime to keep up with the chaos. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center podium, his crystalline body flickering with nervous energy. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he had never called an emergency session for anything like this. How do you tell an entire galaxy that everything they believed about their greatest fear was wrong? Fellow beings of the Alliance, Veltar began, his translated voice echoing through the chamber. 3 days ago, we witnessed something that challenges everything we know about survival in this galaxy. The human ship Discovery has successfully killed the Void Stalker. The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives cheered, Others gasped in disbelief, and many simply sat in stunned silence. The Corellian delegate, whose people had lost 12 colonies to void stalkers, stood up with shaking limbs. Ambassador Veltar, surely you must be mistaken. No species has ever killed a void stalker and lived to tell about it. This is impossible. I wish it were impossible, Veltar replied. But we have complete recordings of the encounter. More disturbing than their success in killing the creature is what they did afterward. The main viewing screen activated, showing footage from the discoveries. Mess hall. The alien representatives watched in growing horror as the human crew calmly ate portions of the void stalker like it was an ordinary meal. They consumed it, whispered the Zelani representative, her plant-like form shuddering. The humans, actually, ate the creature that has terrorized us for millennia. This is madness, declared the Thrakari delegate, his metal scales clattering with agitation. No intelligent species would consume something so dangerous, so filled with malevolent energy. The humans have requested permission to address this. Assembly, Veltar announced. I believe we should hear what they have to say. The chamber fell silent as Captain Jake Morrison, Dr. Lisa Hayes, and Sergeant Danny Walsh entered through the main doors. They walked calmly to the speaker's platform, seemingly unaware that they were facing the collected representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Jake stepped forward to address the assembly. Honored representatives, I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Exploration Service. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. Captain Morrison, interrupted the Corellian delegate, is it true that your people killed and consumed a void stalker? Yes, it is true, Jake replied simply. We tracked the creature, studied its behavior patterns, and used coordinated tactics to hunt it successfully. The meat turned out to be both safe and nutritious for human consumption. The chamber erupted. Again, several smaller species representatives fainted, while others began arguing among themselves in languages the translation system couldn't identify. How is this possible? Demanded the vegan representative, whose people had been forced to live in underground cities to avoid void stalkers. These creatures are death incarnate. They cannot be fought, they cannot be stopped, they cannot be reasoned with. Dr. Hayes stepped forward to answer. With respect, Representative, void stalkers are simply highly evolved predators. They're dangerous, certainly, but they follow biological imperatives like any other creature. They have strengths, but they also have weaknesses. Weaknesses? The word came from a dozen different representatives at once. Their adaptive camouflage takes time to adjust, Dr. Hayes explained. Their electromagnetic interference comes from specific organs that can be damaged. They're solitary hunters who rely on fear and confusion to separate their prey. Once you understand their tactics, you can develop counter-strategies. The Corellian delegate's voice cracked with emotion. Dr. Hayes, my people lost our homeworld to one of these creatures. 40 billion souls died in 6 days. How can you speak of them so casually? Dr. Hayes looked around the chamber with genuine sympathy. I understand your loss, and I'm sorry for it. But your people approached the Void Stalker as an unstoppable force of nature. Humans approach dangerous predators as problems to be solved. Sergeant Walsh had been listening quietly, but now he stepped forward. If I may, honored representatives, I'd like to explain something about human culture that might help you understand. Please do, Veltar said. On Earth, our homeworld, humans evolved alongside creatures that could easily kill individual humans. Giant bears, massive cats with fangs like knives, pack hunters that were faster and stronger than us. We survived by working together, using tools, and turning those predators into resources. The chamber was completely silent now. We learned that the most dangerous creatures often make the best meals. Earth sharks can bite a human in half, but shark meat is considered a delicacy. Grizzly bears can break a human spine with one swipe. But bear steaks are prized by hunters. We've been eating things that want to eat us for thousands of years. The Thrakari delegate spoke up. But Sergeant Walsh, surely you understand that void stalkers are beyond anything on your world. They're massive, intelligent, nearly indestructible. With respect, sir, so are the creatures we call whales. Some whales are bigger than starships and smarter than most people. Our ancestors hunted them with wooden boats and metal spears. If humans could hunt whales with primitive tools, we can hunt void stalkers with modern weapons. A new voice came from the back of the chamber. What about the electromagnetic interference? How did you overcome their invisibility? Dr. Hayes answered. We tracked them with sensors designed to penetrate their camouflage. The interference actually made them easier to find once we knew what to look for. It's like following a noise through a quiet forest. And the hunting strategy? Asked another representative. Captain Morrison took this one. Coordinated pack tactics. Multiple firing positions. Overlapping fields of fire. Constant movement to prevent the creature from focusing on any single target. We used the same techniques. Human ancestors used to hunt mammoths and cave bears. A vegan representative spoke up again. Captain Morrison, do you understand what you've done? For 3,000 years, void stalkers have shaped galactic civilization. Entire trade routes exist to avoid systems where they might be found. Species have abandoned technological development to focus on hiding from them. You've changed everything. I hope so, Jake replied. Fear is a useful survival tool, but it becomes a prison when it stops you from solving problems. Your people have been running from these creatures for thousands of years. Maybe it's time to start hunting them instead. You make it sound simple. The Corellian delegate said. It's not simple, Dr. Hayes admitted. It's dangerous work that requires training, proper equipment, and coordinated teamwork. But it's absolutely possible. We're willing to share our research and hunting techniques with any species that wants to learn. And the consumption of the creature? Asked Veltar. Why did you choose to eat it? Walsh grinned. Because it tasted good. Also, it's about respect. When you successfully hunt a dangerous predator, using every part of it honors both the hunter and the prey. Besides, have you seen the protein analysis? This stuff is incredibly nutritious. The chamber fell silent again as the alien representatives tried to process what they were hearing. These humans weren't just claiming they could kill void stalkers. They were treating the galaxy's ultimate nightmare as a potential food source. Captain Morrison, Veltar said finally, what do your people intend to do now? We're planning to return to human space and report our findings. Other human exploration teams will probably want to study void stalkers as well. We'll develop better hunting techniques, safer equipment, maybe even establish specialized hunting teams. You're going to hunt them professionally? The question came from multiple representatives. Why not? Jake replied. On Earth, we have professional hunters who track dangerous animals that threaten communities. This is just a larger-scale version of the same thing. The Zalani representative spoke up. What about the meat? Will humans be consuming void stalkers regularly? If we can hunt enough of them, absolutely, Walsh answered. I'm already working on recipes. The flavor is incredible, and the nutritional value is off the charts. I could see void stalker steaks becoming very popular in human restaurants. The chamber erupted one final time as the full implications hit the assembled representatives. The humans weren't just talking about killing void stalkers for protection. They were talking about turning them into a commercial food industry. Ambassador Veltar called for order. This session is suspended while we process this information. Captain Morrison, Dr. Hayes, Sergeant Walsh, the Alliance thanks you for your time. As the humans left the chamber, the alien representatives began the difficult process of reimagining their understanding of the galaxy. For thousands of years, They had organized their entire civilization around avoiding void stalkers. Now they had to consider the possibility that these creatures weren't unstoppable forces of nature, but simply very dangerous animals that could be hunted, killed, and eaten. The conversation in the chamber continued for hours, but one thing was clear. To everyone present, the galaxy would never be the same. Humans had looked at their greatest fear and decided it would make a good dinner. 6 months after the Discovery's first encounter with a void stalker, the galaxy looked completely different. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Eden Station, watching cargo ships bring supplies to humanity's newest colony. The planet below had once been considered a death world, abandoned by 3 different alien species after void stalker attacks. Now it was home to 50,000 humans and growing fast. "Hard to believe this place was empty 6 months ago," said Dr. Lisa Hayes, joining Jake at the viewing window. She carried a datapad showing the latest reports from human hunting teams across the galaxy. "What's the current count?" Jake asked. 17 systems cleared of void stalkers, with active hunting. Operations in 12 more. The teams have killed 43 creatures so far, with only 2 human casualties. Both hunters survived, by the way. Jake nodded with satisfaction. The hunting techniques they had developed were working better than anyone had expected. Human teams were systematically clearing void stalkers from systems that had been considered lost causes for centuries. Ben Parker approached them with a grin on his face. He now led one of the most successful hunting teams in human space. "Captain, you need to see the latest message from Earth. The Colonial Authority is officially classifying void stalker hunting as a recognized profession. They're setting up training academies and everything." "About time," Jake replied. "How many applications are they getting?" Last count was over 10,000. Apparently, the idea of hunting the galaxy's ultimate predator appeals to a lot of humans. "Who would have thought?" Dr. Hayes laughed. "Anyone who knows humans, Parker. We've never met a dangerous animal we didn't want to hunt." Down on the planet's surface, Sergeant Danny Walsh was putting the finishing touches on his newest restaurant. Walsh's Void Stalker Steakhouse had become the most popular dining establishment in human space. The waiting list for a table was 3 weeks long, and cargo ships came from across the galaxy to pick up frozen void stalker meat for distribution. "Order up," Walsh called, sliding another perfectly cooked void stalker steak across the pass. The meat had a rich, complex flavor that food critics compared to the finest Earth beef, but with a texture and protein content that made it incredibly nutritious. Alien food experts had tried to analyze what made it so appealing to humans, but most of them couldn't get past the psychological barrier of eating something so terrifying. Commander Tony Rodriguez walked into the restaurant, still wearing his hunting gear after returning from a successful expedition. His team had just cleared 2 void stalkers from the Centauri system, opening up 3 planets for human colonization. "How did it go?" Walsh asked, preparing Rodriguez's usual order. "Like clockwork," Rodriguez replied. "The new targeting systems Dr. Hayes developed make tracking them almost easy. These creatures rely on fear and confusion to hunt effectively. When you take those away, they're just big, dangerous animals." "Any word from the Galactic Alliance?" "They're still trying to process what's happening. Half of them think we're insane. The other half want to hire us to clear void stalkers from their systems. The Corellians just placed an order for 5 hunting teams." Walsh served the steak with a smile. 5 teams, huh? Business is good. Across the galaxy, Ambassador Veltar sat in his private chambers, reviewing reports that would have been unimaginable. Just months ago, the crystalline being's form flickered with confusion as he read update after update about human hunting operations. Species 7742, known as humans, have successfully eliminated void stalker presence from 17 star systems. He read aloud to his aide. Economic analysis shows that former quarantine zones are now producing agricultural goods, rare minerals, and serving as population centers for human expansion. Sir, his aide said carefully, the Preservation Alliance is receiving requests for assistance from member species. They want to know if humans would be willing to clear void stalkers from their territorial space. Veltar set down the report. And what do the humans say? They're willing to help, sir. For a reasonable fee. They're treating it as a commercial enterprise. They're charging money to kill the creatures that have terrorized us for millennia? Yes, sir. Although their rates are quite fair, considering the service provided. The Zelani have already hired 3 human teams to clear their outer colonies. Veltar tried to understand how the galaxy had changed so quickly. 6 months ago, void stalkers were considered forces of nature, like black holes or supernovas, dangerous cosmic phenomena that you avoided rather than fought. Now, humans were advertising hunting services in galactic trade publications. Back on New Eden, Jake Morrison received a visitor he hadn't expected. A small shuttle landed at the colony's main spaceport, and out stepped a nervous-looking Corellian delegate. The alien's insect-like features twitched with anxiety as he approached. The human settlement. Captain Morrison, the delegate said through his translation device, I am Clichter of the Corellian Council. I have come to make a request that my people never thought they would make. What can we do for you, Clichter? We want to learn. We want to know how your people overcame the fear that has controlled us for so long. The Corellian High Command has authorized me to ask if humans would be willing to train some of our people in your hunting techniques. Jake was surprised. This was the first time any alien species had asked to learn human hunting methods rather than simply hiring human teams. It would be dangerous for your people. Void stalker hunting requires specific physical and mental capabilities. We understand the risks, Captain, but we cannot continue to live in fear. My people have been hiding underground for 3,000 years. We want to reclaim our surface cities, to live in the light again. If humans can turn our greatest nightmare into dinner, perhaps we can learn to be brave as well. Dr. Hayes had been listening to the conversation. Clichter, I should mention that void stalker meat might not be edible for your species. The proteins that make it nutritious for humans could be toxic to Corellians. We do not wish to eat them, Dr. Hayes. We simply want to stop being afraid of them. Jake made a decision that would change interspecies relations forever. We'll help you, Clichter, but we do this properly. Full training, proper equipment, and human instructors for your first hunts. If your people are going to face void stalkers, they need to be prepared. 3 weeks later, the first mixed-species hunting team in galactic history prepared for their mission. 5 humans and 3 Corellians worked together to track a void stalker that had been terrorizing a Corellian mining colony for 6 months. Remember, Rodriguez explained to the Corellian team members, this creature is dangerous, but it's not invincible. Stick to the plan, maintain communication, and trust your equipment. The hunt went smoothly. The humans had learned to make void, stalker hunting almost routine, and the Corellians proved to be quick learners. When the creature was finally killed, one of the Corellian hunters stood over the body and spoke in his own language. What did he say? Asked Parker. He said that for the first time in his life, he is not afraid, the translator reported. Back at Walsh's restaurant, a very special dinner was being served. Ambassador Veltar sat at a table with Captain Morrison, Dr. Hayes, and several other humans. In front of him was a small piece of void stalker meat, carefully prepared to be safe for his species' unique biology. Ambassador, Jake said, you don't have to do this. We understand if it's too difficult. Veltar looked at the meat that represented everything his people had feared for thousands of years. Captain Morrison, my species has run from these creatures for 3 millennia. We have shaped our entire civilization around avoiding them. Perhaps it is time to try a different approach. The ambassador picked up a small piece of the meat and put it in his mouth. The flavor was unlike anything he had ever experienced, rich and complex in ways that his people's vegetarian diet had never provided. "How does it taste?" Dr. Hayes asked. "Like victory," Veltar replied. "Like the end of fear." As the months passed, more alien species began to hire human hunting teams or request training in human hunting techniques. The Zelani established a joint human-alien hunting academy. The Thrakari began developing new weapons specifically for void stalker hunting. Even the peaceful vegans started learning basic defensive techniques. The change wasn't just military or commercial. The psychological effect of seeing humans treat void stalkers as prey rather than predators changed how entire civilizations thought about danger and survival. Species that had hidden for centuries began to expand again. Trade routes that had been closed for millennia reopened. The galaxy began to grow in ways it hadn't for thousands of years. Now Jake Morrison stood on his observation deck one final time before the Discovery departed for its next mission. New Eden had grown from an empty world to a thriving colony in just 6 months. The planet that 3 alien species had abandoned in terror was now home to humans who considered void stalkers a natural resource. "Where to next, Captain?" Dr. Hayes asked. Jake smiled as he looked at the star charts showing systems still marked as void stalker territory. "There's a whole galaxy out there, Hayes. Lots of dangerous creatures that need hunting, and probably quite a few that will taste good with the right seasoning."